So, in March, President Trump revealed his budget blueprint. To offset increases in defense and homeland security, the budget proposed $54 billion in cuts to areas all around the federal government. Now, according to reports, virtually every agency will see some type of cut. 19 agencies will lose funding entirely. Threatened programs include after-school services, low-income home heating and cooling, and funding for Meals on Wheels. Federal agencies also must consider staff cuts in line with the president's proposed budget for next year. So, ladies, we're going to talk about budgets, but before we do that, we, in the last segment, we talked about when the women actually, a day without the women in their normal positions. There was so much talk going on. Ms. Campbell, talk to us about that.
Well, I just have to say I was really very much supportive of that idea, the Day Without a Woman. I think it just dramatized the important role that we played throughout history, and particularly Black women, in terms of all the multiple hats that we have to wear with our families and the community, on jobs and so forth. But the thing that struck me was also our own Prince George's County trying to decide what would happen with the school system and the teachers and the kids getting ready. I remember finding out very early in the morning of that the teachers weren't going to be in, so the kids would be out. And so that was just an incredible thing, because
wow,
my little grandbaby was, of course, she was just overjoyed that she was not going to have to get up. She missed getting on the bus, of course,
yes,
and all of that. But I just thought it was just so interesting that they decided not to have school.
Wow,
even
I
though
didn't know that.
I think in her school they were supposed to have a program that evening and so on. So all of that they did get to see. This was not happening because women were not there. And for me, I was ecstatic because I had testified in D.C. recently about the paid leave issue, where you have women and others who are on positions that they don't get a sick leave day or they don't get a paid leave day. So if they don't show up, if they work at McDonald's or some of these other places, they don't get paid.
Or they lose their jobs.
And they could be fired, and they should not have to go through that. And I was really excited that bill passed in D.C. Also in Prince George's County, that bill has passed.
Wow.
I notified my legislators about their support, and they were right on board with it, and we're hoping the governor will sign.
And that's fantastic, because as a follow-up, there were some working women who said, I have to go to work.
Right. Well, not only did they have to go to work, but when children were not sent to school, what were those workers going to do?
Child care providers had to be there.
Right.
Or
if you have a job, you can't go to your job because now your kid's home. So it was kind of a mixed blessing, I'd have to say.
And I was, as I started to say, my little girl is in 6th grade. I picked her up at 5:30. She's in a lot of after-school programs at school, and at 5:30 they had to go to school. By the time we got to Harris Teeter's, 10 minutes away, a text comes through, no school. So I'm thinking, I just had a conversation with her teacher. Oh, tomorrow we're going to do this. But I wanted to say also, the Day Without Women spoke volume to how we as women follow through and follow up.
That's good.
So we didn't make the march the last stand. This was a day that was a follow-up to outcomes from the Women's March. on Washington.
Fantastic.
And I think what it highlights is what we're just sort of laughing about is a day without a woman is a day of chaos, right? Chaos and confusion. You know, because we get it done and we're getting it done. And one thing that we're speaking about is, you know, women who, you know, as you're talking about the legislation with the Prince George's County Commission for Women, which I'm honored to serve on with a dynamic group of women, including our chair, Jennifer Jones. We are doing that advocacy work for paid sick leave, for equal pay, because not only is a day without a woman a day of confusion, we also realize the supports that women and families need. And as women go, families go, and communities go, and our county goes, and our country goes, and our state goes.
Wow.
I truly believe that. So,
yeah, fantastic.
You know, that's why that advocacy.
So that was very important. That was a great follow-up.
Yeah,
is that what you're saying?
Okay.
That was a great follow-up?
It was a part of the agenda to let the world, the universe know we're not stopping. We had our march. Next is the Day Without Women, and there are other things to come.
And that's
as
the
a
key.
result of.
Right. Well,
you
I
know,
think one thing that I'm very excited about is we're having a lot more women be interested in running for office.
Yes.
And I think that that is critical, because if you have enough women in office, you don't have to fight about paid sick leave. You don't have to talk about, you know, equal pay. I mean, these things will happen if women are in the majority, like we really are in real life, instead of in the minority in the legislatures.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful.
you know, something else that's powerful, and we don't have to go into this conversation, but take Bill O'Reilly, for instance. It was because of what he said about Maxine Waters that started his demise and got him fired today. He had already done all of these things, okay?
Yes.
But because Maxine Waters refused to be shut down or seated, and made it very clear that I would not listen to someone who did XYZ, she bought back. And today, he lost his job.
Yeah, absolutely. Heard that on the news today.
Powerful.
Powerful, powerful, powerful. Okay, so we could go on that. But we got to go to budget cuts. We got to talk about budget cuts. Okay, so I already know a few people who've gotten pink slips. People who have contracts and their contracts are not renewed because of the potential of the budget cuts. Some of those possible cuts I want to talk about as it relates to our community. After school programs, let's talk about that a little bit. Who does that affect? Really make a difference in our county?
Oh, yes.
Let's talk about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, when you really look at it, people who have a certain income are going to have their kids taken care of anyway.
Right.
So we're really talking about working class people and people who are struggling. What's going to happen to their kids after school? Well, they can get in trouble, you know, without proper supervision. I was not always properly supervised as a child, and I found trouble to get into. And just for the grace of God that I'm here today.
Yeah.
So I know how important it is to have children be involved in positive activities. And upper income people, they make sure their children are getting these great experiences and that they're supervised. So it's the more struggling families, the working class families who really need these supports. And I have no idea why anybody would think it's a good idea to take away that kind of support, or to take away Meals on Wheels. Or
that's where we're going next. That's
things.
next. I'm going to talk about Meals on Wheels.
How is any of that making America great again?
Right.
What is he talking about?
America's already great. I think one of the other things that's
No, he's making it awful.
if you can make it from nothing to something, right? America is great in limited positions and opportunities, right? Because there are systems that are broken, which is what you're speaking to with budget cuts. And I think, you know, one of the other ways that these budget cuts, for example, the after-school programs, really can impact women in particular is women are head of household and single family, single mothers in upwards of 80% in some communities of color in particular.
Absolutely.
And that's a huge, huge, huge percentage of people and families that don't look like the, you know, standard nuclear family that need those resources and supports to help them as they're going from this job to, you know, picking up their children or a second job even.
Yeah, so that's going to hit us hard. Is that what you're
without a
saying?
doubt, yeah.
So let's talk real quickly on Meals on Wheels.
Why?
Right? I mean,
Just
and
why?
The only thing that gets me though is the people who are suffering from his proposed cuts, or would suffer if they go through. A lot of them voted for him.
Of course.
And you want to like laugh, except for no one deserves that.
No one
and
deserves
seniors who have certainly done their part in this
Without
world,
a doubt.
they deserve to be taken care of.
But I think that's the thing that we have identified now as part of the problem. I think in terms of moving toward the solution, we have to figure out a way to get that message across, that these cuts will affect your life. Enough of the rhetoric that, you know, I'm going to look out for you, I'm going to bring all the jobs back, all these slogans. But when it really gets down to the bottom line, I think that's where our message, those of us that are active in the community, have to be able to have these one-on-one conversations with anyone who will listen so that they can understand. The rhetoric is one thing, but when the funding disappears and your check isn't in the mail, that's a problem.
That's a problem. One of the other areas, college work-study programs reduced. That's, wow.
I mean, those are people who are trying so hard to make it.
Yes.
You know, students who are trying to work their way through school, who need that little bit of money you get. Why would we want to take that away from anyone? I have 2 students in school right now, and everybody's got some little side gig happening. I'm glad that they're involved in things that Trump can't take from them.
Yeah, that's,
And my nonprofit awards scholarships, but that's only one piece
Right.
of what these students need when they're in
Absolutely.
college. You know, so
Absolutely.
that work study provides not only the extra income, but in some cases for them, it helps them motivate their family members who
Absolutely.
aren't in school, who can see them as an example.
absolutely,
yes.
absolutely. We'll be
Yes.
back. We've got so much more to talk about here. Don't go away. It's going to get